Good morning, everybody. Betting for breakfast. We're back on a Saturday morning. Plenty of action to go over today. I'm Mark Drumheller. I'm here with Dave Kleckner. We got NBA playoffs in full swing. We have the USFL this weekend. We have UFC Vegas 52 big fights we're going to talk about. And of course, beautiful weather outside. Perfect to bet some baseball. So Dave Kleckner's here with his best bets in that. So much action going on. And of course, flying under the radar a little bit is the NFL draft coming up next Thursday. So we're going to have Lexi come on at the end and talk a little bit about the Detroit Lions at number 2. A lot of different rumors going on as far as what they're going to do with that pick. Are they playing the smoke screen, the old Mac Jones routine from last year that we saw? Or, are they really zoned in on really winning in the trenches and getting one of those big dominant defensive players in the draft? We're going to find out. We're going to talk to Lexi a little later towards the end of the show. But before we get started, guys, make sure you download the Sharp app. It's the best bet tracker around there. Track your bets, compare your odds, and more importantly, bet smarter. So much good educational content, videos in the Sharp app every day, including our top props, which is up over 70 units. So if you guys like props, make sure that you're in the app, getting all the information you need on a daily basis to make sure that you're having a winning season in the NBA during the playoffs. So, Dave, I want to start with that. I want to start with the NBA. The big story's been injuries, unfortunately, this week, right? Joel Embiid and the Sixers going for a sweep. Little concern about his thumb, but the big injury, Devin Booker going out in Phoenix, and we've seen some turbulence in the Western Conference betting market with the Suns, dropping down, the Golden State Warriors shooting up to being the favorite. What are your takes? We saw the Suns take care of business last night. I cashed that ticket. I had them on the money line minus 120. Do you think the market is correct in making Golden State the new favorite now?
Well, first off, I think Chris Paul can't catch a break. This guy, every time he's got a team that's just about there. Last year, it was pretty much relatively healthy, but they were a little under the radar. What were they, the 3 seed last year? I think they were coming out.
I think so.
Yeah. But, case in point, you got to battle through this. And it is a grade 1, so it's a little concerning. I think, we think of our own guy here in Philadelphia, James Harden, who may not really be looking the same right now. People are pointing back that hamstring injury he had mid-season. So even when he comes back, how much will it hamper his overall ability? So I do have concerns. The good news for Phoenix is they did get that 1 seed. Mm-hmm. And then when you're staring at a team right now, you're looking at Dallas probably. Lucas still has a questionable ankle in the second round. I think that's a great matchup for Phoenix. That's 2 defensive-minded teams. You don't really need to get in a shootout with anyone. So if they can somehow navigate through this series in New Orleans, get to a good, favorable matchup, either Utah or Dallas, I think is pretty good for them. It does concern me if he's not back for Golden State. Golden State right now looks like a team that is just motivated. They're reading the news. They think that they're disrespected. You know how people love to play that card. And they have the number 1 disrespecter in all the league in Draymond Green, who's just yapping at anyone he can, throwing out barbs at Jokic this week. So I think the market has shifted accordingly, mainly because everyone sees how Golden State's playing. Everyone wants to get to the window and cash some tickets on Golden State. So they do have to adjust for that. I would still take Phoenix.
Yeah, and I would too. And I still think that the market has always, I feel like, overvalued Golden State all season. Yeah. And, we kind of seen them struggle with injuries. But even in, if you look back to, the Defensive Player of the Year award, right? It took them forever to move off Draymond. Draymond's not even playing. He's doing interviews, not talking about coming back. And they were still hanging Draymond plus 200 to win the award. It was crazy. I just think that they get so much respect in the market. I wonder, and one of the things that I looked at, as we got into the playoffs in the futures market was the big gap between them and Memphis that I thought, in the futures market, that was crazy. And I get it. Listen, this death lineup looks good. They're playing small ball. This is against Denver, right? This is not against, the upper echelon of the league. I think they're going to have a much harder time against Memphis. And if they do get by Memphis and get into the, Western Conference Finals against Phoenix, I just think Phoenix is so deep that, they're going to need more than one lineup, one set of rotation to kind of beat them. And, Dave, I think you can agree with me here. If there's a team that's built to withstand this type of injury. It's the Phoenix Suns.
Oh,
Plus 9 in net rating when Booker's off the floor, as long as, Paul and Ayton are in there. They're plus 9 in net rating. So, we saw them last night handle their business. They have guys like Cam Johnson that can kind of step up. I think that they're going to be just fine. Like maybe it's me just holding on to my Suns, Western Conference future tickets, but I'm going to double down if this number gets any better.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, think about it. Like last night, Paul and Ayton shot 38 shots out of their 87. I mean, they were not quite 50%, but they just said, hey, it's our team. We got to go carry it. Who's going to stop Ayton if they do that? Like, I mean, Valanciunas is actually a tough matchup for him. He's actually lit up Phoenix. There was some market value out there. And what he do last night? He was 1 for 5. He's got problems. So then you go Dallas. There's nothing down there. I guess Gobert could neutralize a little, but then, like you said, I love Cam Johnson's emergence. I think the injury of Paul has actually probably prepared them to battle this. And the one guy, they got a few coming off the bench. Who else do they have? Torrey Craig they picked up in the offseason. Payne's always been a good shooter. Shamet. I mean, they're deep, like you
Holiday,
said.
They're deep as they come, man.
Yeah, and I think they got a good shot to really, like, I mean, if you go in the Golden State and Booker's down, they're going to be probably plus 200 with home court advantage and the defensive metrics.
I'll take it all day, man.
I will.
I'll take it all day. Fool's gold, I feel like these Golden State Warriors are. But, dude, the playoffs are fun. When we look at the semifinal matchups, we're probably looking at, Golden State and Memphis. We're probably looking at the Suns and Dallas, right? 2 good matchups out in the West. In the East, we're probably looking at Philly and Miami. And, probably, Brooklyn might be able to come back, but probably looking at Boston and Milwaukee, which are all tremendous matchups. So the NBA playoffs going forward is going to be fantastic. Now let's shift our focus to today's board in the NBA. I know there's a matchup out there that has you salivating. You fired it in already. What are you looking at today in the NBA, Dave?
Well, listen, it starts. You want to get up early. The Sixers look like a nice play. -3. I think they've taken the hearts of Toronto. I'm not going to play that game. Got a little too much heart on the line in that one, and we'll just enjoy it.
But got to be objective.
Yeah, and then you get into a little deeper in the, I've been taking the Mavs every game. So far, I'm 2-1 in those bets. They're getting 6 again today. They look like a juicy dog once again. We'll pause on that one. The one I'm really staring at are the Nets and the Celtics. I think we've already seen kind of the writing on the wall for this series. Boston's just a little too much late in the game versus the Nets. Whether it's, they're a little more savvy, they're a little more deep, they play a little better defense. It's just this much. The margin is so slim in this series. So you come back to Brooklyn, and where you got a guy like KD who's, what's he shooting? He scored 50 points on 41 attempts. He's struggling mightily. And, all he had to do was make 1 or 2 extra, and they're up 2-0.
They're putting bodies on those boys, man. They're putting bodies on them.
But they are putting bodies on them. And I think he's shooting like 30% when contested, but he's only shooting like 48% when open. And that's the other problem, or like has space, as they call it. So really what I want to look at, and in this game, I'm pulling it up now, I like the Nets. I'm not sure if they're going to cover the full 3.5, but looking at the first half total, I like them in the first half with the 3.5. I think they're going to come out on fire, be jacked up, kind of what they did in game 2. If you remember, they got off the big jump start against Boston in game 2. Boston had to fight back. Great, run at the end of the game. I think it's going to be similar in this one. I'm a little nervous about a full line here at 3.5. I'll probably lean Brooklyn money line for the full game. But looking at the first half, I like Brooklyn to really, pretty much put it all on the table in the first half and have a decent lead by halftime. So I'll take Brooklyn first half as my play of the day.
Yeah, and we've seen that bump, right? That home court bump when the team that the lower seed kind of moves on and they start getting game 3 at home. You see that, right? You kind of see them come out and start shooting well, more familiarity on their home court. I think Toronto in the first half against the Sixers in that game 3 shot 8 for 16 from 3-point range. Shot very well. Again, Minnesota, same thing, looked real good in the first half. Then things fell apart. So I like taking Brooklyn there in the first half. I don't think it's a bad play at all. I just think that it's a team that when you look at it with Durant and Irving, really a 2-man team, and they are they've logged a lot of minutes, man, and they are just trying to battle through to the finish line. And it is early in the playoffs, and Boston is just able to kind of wear them down physically as the game goes on. And you're kind of seeing that towards the end of the game. Now, that only works if you have snipers on your side that can finish the game, right? And I think Boston has that with Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown obviously stepped up a little bit as well, but they have that balance of where they can play you physically tough defense, and then they have elite players that can score in isolation at the end of the game. So I really like Boston. Have them in the series at minus 105. But Dave, I think you bring up a great point. I think this is a spot where we could see Brooklyn start off strong early. And I do think that it is going to be a series. Even having the Celtics, they're not going to sweep here. They're not going to win in 5 games. So it's going to be a tough series. So I do expect Brooklyn to be competitive.
And big news today. Who's coming back?
Ben Simmons, game 4, right?
No, Robert Williams. I was talking Robert Williams.
Is he coming back? When's he coming back?
He's playing today.
Oh, that's bad news for Brooklyn in the series. For the series. Yeah,
for the series. I think they're saying 10 to 15. They're going to roll him out there today. I don't know where your head's at with Ben Simmons. That dude's never playing again.
Oh, he's back. He's going to be back. Now, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, but he'll be back. I mean,
I guess it's just because he's got to get paid. But
I'll tell you what. I'll be interested to see, because I think the best thing that Brooklyn can do against Boston is try and go small and counter them that way, because physically they're getting manhandled, and that opens the door of, hey, do you get Drummond off the floor, and do you put Simmons at center and just play this small lineup that might be the most beneficial for Brooklyn. So it'll be interesting to see what Nash does with Ben Simmons. But playing him at point and having him get chewed on, I wouldn't want him up against Marcus Smart all game.
No, but Horford will chew him up too. If you put him at center, you don't expect him to do anything except rebound.
Right, he's not. He's getting rebounds and passing and getting them in transition. Like that's really what you want him to do. You don't need him to score. You got Kyrie and Durant for that. And then you got shooters. Like, they do have shooters. They're just small. Like Curry and those guys are tiny, man. So it's like physically, I think Boston is too much for them.
Patty
in
Mills.
This series.
Yeah, he's
Patty,
small.
right. Yeah. Good guys. Like, good guys having their team, but just the compilation, if I could talk this morning, of all of them, with just, Kyrie and Durant. I just think it's a rough mix. So I think Simmons' size could help them going forward in the series.
One point I did hear was that if they could let Simmons bring the ball up, it would give Irving and Durant a little more space off the ball. But like you said, like if they go and throw like Marcus Smart on Simmons, he's passing before they could even run any plays. Like he's
passing at half court, right?
Yeah. So I think Celtics have every card that Brooklyn could play. They can counteract every card. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I like Boston in this series, but I want to see it. Like, being a Sixers fan, I want to see it go like 6 or 7, dude.
Yeah.
Go 6 or 7. We'll already be in like game 3 in Miami. You know what I mean? Like playing that. Well, you know what? The Hawks did win, so that's going to extend that series a little bit. I was kind of hoping to get sweep there, but and then you want to get the huge rest before the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that's kind of the important thing there. But going to be a lot of fun. But guys out there, punch it in. Go to the sharp app. Punch in Brooklyn first half. Let's get some money there with the Nets. Lots going on. Guys, we appreciate everybody tuning in. John, Trey, good to see you, buddy. If you guys got best bets, throw them in the comments. We will definitely talk about them. So much going on in the sports landscape. I'm going to shift right now and talk a little bit about the UFC card tonight, Ufc Vegas 52. I got a ton of plays lined up in the Sharp app. Make sure you hop into Discord. It's in the link below. We can sweat out all these fights, but members got all the plays. But I'm going to talk about the main event here. Jessica Andrade against Amanda Lemos. And this is a fight where we've seen the odds move, right? I gave out Andrade early in the week. We've seen the odds move from around minus 180 all the way up to minus 220. Money coming in on Jessica Andrade. And I think that this is her returning back to the division. I think this is an opportunity for her to really make a case to try and kind of get back into title contention. Lemos, Brazilian fighter, very strong striker, on the outside. Plus, she'll come right up the middle with straight shots and knees. But we've seen her kind of wane as the fight goes on. Cardio has been a little bit of an issue with her. There's a chance early in the fight she could clip Andrade, and boom, it could all go bad, right? But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Andrade has so many ways to win in this fight. She can win in the phone booth. She can get tight, win in the clinch with knees, show her power, get this fight to the ground, pound the Mosh out. So I really like Jessica Andrade in this fight. I played it 2 ways. So I played her to win. I played on the money line. I got it in at minus 190. And I also played a little bit of the KO prop because I do think that she is able to finish this fight. So I think Andrade is the play tonight in the UFC. Another card in the Apex, so starts a little early, not the pay-per-view. So you can see this one on TV. The main card starts around 8 o'clock. Jessica Andrade against Amanda Lemos. And then, building up in 2 weeks, we're going to have the big pay-per-view card with Charles Oliveira defending his title against Justin Gaethje. But for tonight, listen, I got a ton of plays on the Sharp app. Subscribers, members, go get those plays. We're going to win some money tonight. But the main event, go with Andrade, pounding her out. What do you got, brother?
You don't have to give me your pick on this one, but I had one that I eyed up in the UFC tonight, and it might be in your Sharp app, but I can't believe Clay Guida's still fighting. 40 years old, 30, this dude, I remember when we were watching it back in the early 2000s. He looked like a caveman running around with that hair, but he would always have a tank. And to see him tonight against someone he's 14 years older, to be pretty much, a straight up even play.
It's minus 110 each side. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to give Dave UFC right now, I've read some things about Pulis. He hasn't been too dominant in his 4-game winning streak. He's actually been 2 of them were decisions that people question. So I kind of think, the numbers are telling me Guida in this fight. So I'll throw a little UFC action out there too. I'll go Clay Guida tonight. I think he's the co-main in a way. He's the second one going off right before the main. So
yeah. Main card fight. And Clay Guida is a guy, like I said, always plays well in front of the judges because high motor, high volume. So if this thing does get to the judges, he always leaves a profound impact. And I think that's important when you're fighting a guy who's an up-and-coming prospect, could be kind of overwhelmed, probably doesn't have a lot of experience fighting that type of fighter, right, with such a high motor. And he's just a weird guy to fight. Like, his fights are a little, it's frantic. It's kind of like crazy. You know what I mean? He's like, a little bit like the Tasmanian devil in there. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because I understand your point. And I kind of went back and forth on this fight. I don't have a bet on it. I could easily see Guida overwhelming him, winning on points, going to the decision. But I just struggle with betting these older fighters. Like, it's just like, because you never know. Because when they go off the cliff, they're off the cliff. They deteriorate very quickly. And it's like, so it's tough. So I usually don't like to back older fighters, but I do think you have a point here. I mean, that's why I didn't pull the trigger. But if I was going to play a side, I'd probably play with Guida just because of the volume alone. It shows so well in front of the judges. And I do think that he can kind of get through the 3 rounds without getting knocked out here. So if it goes to the scorecards, it's probably Guida's fight.
Yeah, he throws a lot of volume at you. He might not throw a lot of damage at times, but he's always active, like you said, and he knows how to point a scorecard. So that's a good point. When Pulis is sitting there going to decisions lately, this is not a guy you want to go to decision against. So
no, absolutely. Everybody, all the judges love Clay Guida. So it's a little bit tough. And these guys, man, God bless them, man, fighting in their 40s. I'm in my 40s myself. I cannot do it. I
can't fight my 8-year-old. Because
I'm wrestling around. I'm wrestling around with my kids for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, "Bring me the oxygen, man." I'm done, man. I'm done. But good stuff there. UFC, lots of fun tonight. Again, so much action going on. NBA action all day. UFC, USFL, and of course, it's baseball season. Dave, you've been doing a tremendous job over at Win Daily Sports, giving out plays on the daily. Make sure you guys follow Dave at DGleck. You can see all his plays and all the good stuff he's doing over at Win Daily. But I know, Dave, you got a best bet lined up for us today.
I do. And yes, please follow Win Daily, a brother of the Sharp app. Obviously, we do a lot of good stuff over there. Just some quick hitters on DFS. Look, stack Cardinals today. they light up Tyler Mahle, the pitcher from the Reds. He's lit up 10 homers against this lineup, 2 to DeJong, 2 to Bader, 3 to Molina. So just look to stack if you're in DFS. The Cardinals, another one I would also consider is stacking the Pirates. Say they ripped Kyle Hendricks earlier. Brian Hayes is one that has just torn him up. But when you're looking at best bets, Drums, yeah, I do. Look, we always talk about expected value or implied odds in baseball, and you're just trying to, find the right area because you're going to have to bet dogs at times. So today, one of my best bets is a dog, and I'm looking at a team last night that actually finally woke up. They got through a series versus Toronto where they lost 2 or 3, only scored about 5 runs, and yes, I'm talking about the Boston Red Sox. Today, they get to go against JP Fireisen. I know I'll get that name right once in a while, but today maybe not, unlike you, just waking up. But they had a huge output last night, the Red Sox against Tampa. They seemed to feel comfortable down at Tropicana Field. They won 4-3. And today, their implied odds, they're the dog. And what I'm looking at in a few areas is, a lot of advanced metrics have them as a favorite. Yes, they're a light dog. You can get them as high as plus 115. But if I'm getting plus 115 and I'm getting in some sites show me at 51% winning odds, then I'm really buying up, 4 or 5% against against the line in the book. So I like the Red Sox today as a dog. I think they beat Tampa Bay. I think it might be a bullpen game. It's one of those where we might see it stretch out a little bit, but let's roll Sox today. I think their bats finally woke up. Devers hit a homer. I know Franco hit 2 for the Rays, but it'll be an offensive game, and I like the Sox in that one.
There you go. Go Boston, right? So, we're gonna fade Boston in basketball, and then we're gonna get right back on it for
just for a half,
kids for baseball. Just for a half, yeah. They can win they can win the second half. They can win the game. They help us get one step towards that Boston Celtics series ticket. But we're gonna go with the Red Sox, get back into good graces to the Boston fans. Here against Tampa at Tropicana Field, which is probably the ugliest stadium ever created by mankind.
And in the middle of nowhere. Like
in the middle of nowhere. Do people go there? Like, do they sell tickets? I know nothing about baseball, just for the record, so people know. But are they still not selling tickets? Like, are they going to move that place or?
No, they're good right now because the Red Sox will half sell it out. But there's been talk about them going to Canada. But right now, I think they're kind of established. They actually signed a long-term deal with the city. I think they're trying to construct a new stadium. So I think Tampa may be safe. The biggest thing for Tampa is they actually have to move to Tampa. St. Pete's is like an hour south, and it's just nobody goes, man.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to get down there. But good stuff. Good stuff in the MLB. So make sure we hit the Sox today. We're going to cash that. We like dogs. We like plus money. Let's fire it up. And let's move over to football, Dave. Let's do that. We got some USFL action this weekend. Continues after last night. Last night, a little tough one to watch. And then we're going to bring on Lexi at the end and talk a little bit about, the NFL draft. So let's start with the USFL. Last night, Michigan Panthers, I was on them. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes you got to come clean. You don't win them all. I had them. I thought there was good value there. I thought they played very well in the second half of that game against Houston. Our offense averaged 6.7 yards per play in the second half against Houston last week. It was a game where they went down 17-0. They battled back. They lost 17-12. And they took on a New Jersey Generals team that in the first week, defense was non-existent in the second half. It looks like they gassed a little bit. And they let up, 14 fourth quarter points, ended up losing 28-24. So it was a tightly lined game. We saw the line kind of move between, New Jersey -1, -1.5. Back and forth before kickoff. But what we saw was Shea Patterson looking terrible for the Michigan Panthers, man. Just looked awful. I don't have the actual stats with me right now, but I know it. At some point.
14-29, 124, 4-yard average for his completions. Oh, it's nasty.
Yeah. Now that is bulked up because they went 80. It was 10-6.
Yeah.
They went 80 yards down the field. And it was the most offense they got all day. And then, they ended up, coming up just short, on the last play of the game where they could have went in, where they actually could have kicked a field goal and covered if they would at least gave some love to us bettors. They could have kicked the field goal there, took the L and covered. Now, obviously, they would never do that, but they tried to get in the end zone, didn't work out. But before that last drive, Dave, Patterson 2 yards per attempt. Like, it was just brutal. Like, the numbers, the offense, and what we saw. I was talking to Lexi about this a little earlier offline. What we saw is in structure, he was completely inefficient. So, like, drop back 1, 2, 3, check your read, throw the ball. He was terrible. Offense couldn't do anything. When the play breaks down, that's when he's at his best, when he's like scrambling around in chaos and kind of making plays. So I don't know, man. Listen, the Jeff Fisher offense, I didn't have a lot of confidence in going into this UFL season. I saw nothing about it last night to make me feel a little bit better. I thought they looked good in the second half of week 1, but that seemed to be a little bit of an anomaly, as they looked really poor last night.
They did, and I mean, Jeff Fisher's kind of the big name in this, right? And you would figure he'd have a way to construct anything to score more than six measly points versus a Generals team that you talked about. They kind of got ran through in the first week. Like,
gave up 5.6 yards per play, highest amount in the USFL. So
it's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. You can't find a way. And I know there's no home field advantage. All games are played in Alabama, this, that, and other. But I'm really down on Jeff Fisher. It's a shame because and Shea Patterson, he's another guy who is a big name, right?
Number one overall pick.
Yeah,
number one overall pick.
Michigan Wolverine. Thought he was getting some home cooking there. This team's got a lot of issues, and they're probably a team that we need to start looking to fade. Only from the standpoint is I think the lines are still going to be a little bit inflated on them because of the name recognition. So it's got to be something we look at as we go into the next matchup.
Yeah, interesting matchup next week because I'm not 100% positive, but I think they're lined up against the Pittsburgh Maulers, who probably looked like one of the worst teams in week 1. Offense looked completely anemic. They are the pizza team. Everyone saw the viral video going around where they cut the guy because he asked for pizza instead of chicken salad. Right. So they take on the Philadelphia Stars today. They are they're +7 underdogs in that matchup. So we could see, Pittsburgh being one of the worst teams taking on Michigan, and then you're kind of stuck in a situation of, like, if it's a closely lined game, like, who do we take there? I think that's going to be very interesting. But a couple of things we want to look out for as bettors, right? Number one, the unders are 4-1 so far. Am not jumping all over every under, but can't blame people if they are. Last night, obviously 10-6, we had a 16-point total, but teams averaged 18 points a game the first week, and there were a lot of missed field goals. So they changed the ball. So now they're going with the regular K ball. They have the sensor in the ball for the first downs. They're not using those for field goals. We didn't see it make much of a difference last night. Kicker's still shanking the ball all over the place, right? So the sensor thing might be a little bit of an excuse, but that. And then another thing too is I felt like in the first week we saw a lot of the defenses gas in the second half. So we talked about how, like, some of these teams like Michigan had success in the second half offensively. We didn't see that carry over into week 2, maybe because these defenses now are starting to really get their legs under them. So that's something to kind of watch for in the following 3 games, this weekend, is how do these defenses look in the second half? Because week 2 might be a better reflection of the strength of defenses that we see than what we saw in week 1. Because in week 1, I felt like there were a lot of games, New Orleans, Philadelphia, and New Orleans was able to kind of run the ball down their throat in the second half. We saw in week 1, the opening night, the Generals ran the ball 24 straight times at Birmingham's defense. So, so you could tell that those defenses were gassed. So today we got 2 games. We got the Stars and the Pittsburgh Maulers. We talked about that. Stars 7-point favorites. I like them in this matchup. They're obviously, the Maulers didn't look really good in week 1, and the Stars looked very efficient, I felt like, on offense when they could have time to throw. Now, they didn't have time to throw because the Breakers defense was all over them, sacked them 6 times in week 1. But I think against lesser competition, I think we're going to see a lot more offense out of the Stars. This total plummeted down to like 35, which I think is a little bit of an overreaction, but I guess we'll find out because there's not a lot of confidence in this Pittsburgh offense to put up points either.
Yeah, and you make a good point about, Philadelphia looked like they could be efficient passing, but couldn't be because of the offensive line. But they did lead the league in passing in week 1. Even with that,
Yep.
Small of a number. I think Brian Scott threw for like 202, something in that range.
Yep.
But he did seem to have a good rapport with one of his receivers. I forget the guy's name, but had like 7 or 8 catches.
Chris Rowan. So Chris Rowan is out for today's game.
Okay.
So that's something to keep in mind on. But I think he was ruled out. So his go-to guy not going to be there. But again, a lot of familiarity with that offense because Andrews was a guy who drafted people that played under him before in these alternative leagues. So that'll be interesting to see how much they miss Chris Rowan today.
Yeah, it is. I do like Philadelphia in that matchup. I think when you have a team that comes out, and I know it's silly to just look at, what happened on social media, but it's true. I mean, if that environment is like polluted already, I mean,
people aren't happy.
Yeah. Do they really want to play for this guy? And it made big news. Like USFL's biggest news making is about pizza right now, not about the play on the field. So I think that's a distraction. I think, you're going to get some decent play here, especially a Philadelphia team that, probably should have won week 1.
Yeah. Yep. And another matchup we have is one of my best bets of the week. I got this on the Sharp app is the Birmingham Stallions against the Houston Gamblers. So the Gamblers were a team, very dominant defense in week 1 against Jeff Fisher. Got turnovers, turned them into touchdowns, got a ton of turnovers. Yep. 9. Yep. Yeah. Crazy. So, did an incredible job on defense. Offensively, they did not look great. They looked good running the ball. But passing game with Clayton Thorsten did not look good. That was one of the critiques I had with them is, they were up 17-0. They come out in the second half and they try and get the passing game going, which made no sense, right? They ended up turning the ball over and letting Michigan back in the game. But that's a matchup that I like against Birmingham. Birmingham, again, obviously got the week 1 win. We'll see how for real they are. The defense obviously let up a ton. And then the big game is tomorrow, New Orleans Breakers against Tampa Bay Bandits. A lot of people have a lot of exposure on Tampa Bay in the futures market, me including. I got them at plus 550 with Jordan Tiamu and Todd Haley being the quarterback coach connection. A lot of people are high on that team, but the offense I did not think looked that great against Pittsburgh in week 1. They really relied on the tight end a lot. They only averaged running the ball for 2.8 yards per attempt. And they really had no vertical passing game. So they're playing a Breakers defense that we talked about, 6 sacks on Philadelphia. Davin Bellamy was all over the field. So it'll be interesting to see. Didn't bet that one yet, but it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. And, there might be a spot where Tampa Bay is a little bit overvalued going into week 2.
Yeah, it really could be. I mean, there is the talk about Tiamu, obviously, and he did look efficient. But, yeah, I think – we talked about before the season, Tampa Bay got a lot of love in futures markets, but then you even saw them in some futures markets when people had them like 5th or 6th. It's a very, I think this game
very volatile, very all over the place.
I think tomorrow's game goes a long way in telling you who they are, because we do know. I think the Breakers were in the top in most of people's top 2 or 3. So tomorrow's going to go a long way in telling you what Tampa Bay is more than what New Orleans is, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely should be the best game. It's interesting because I think it's the featured matchup as far as these are probably the 2 best teams that are playing each other when you look at all the matchups. Yeah. But also, I think people might want to be prepared. We could be looking at an under here because I think this could possibly be the 2 best defenses in the league as well.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people, like those teams because of Todd Haley and, what they can do offensively. But I think both defenses looked really good in week 1. Could follow that up with a big defensive effort in week 2. Which, not to give anything away, but might want to take the points if it's going to be a really low-scoring game. But we'll see in that one. Lots of fun in the USFL. We're going to learn a lot more this weekend, so I expect to have some really good edges going into week 3, so can't wait. But let's move on to the professional stuff, Dave. Let's move on to the NFL. A little bit flying under the radar, right? We don't have the big prom king quarterback this year that's going to be going number 1 that people love to promote and love to market. Top of the draft is kind of littered with good defensive players and, lots going on in the NFL as far as, what those teams are going to do towards the top of the draft. When are the quarterbacks going to get drafted? Are they going to, fall into outside of the top 10, fall into maybe outside of the top 20? There's a lot of talk about next year's quarterback draft being a lot better. Let's bring Lexi on and let's talk to her about it because her Detroit Lions have the number 2 overall pick, and they're a team that needs a quarterback. Let's be honest, right? Jared Goff not getting it done. But the real question for Lions fans is is this the year that you go grab that quarterback? I think Malik Willis is probably the only one that would warrant, the draft capital at number 2. They have the opportunity with Jared Goff in place to where they could draft Willis and they could develop him in the future. I think it makes sense personally. If I was the GM at Detroit, I would probably lean towards Willis at this spot. But Lexi, how are you feeling about the Lions? Where would you like to see them go? Do you want to see them, build a team in the trenches, a la Dan Campbell, right? He wants to, win in 2 yards in a cloud of dust. How are you feeling about the Lions and what they could do on draft day?
Yeah, this is honestly one of the first years where I just really have no idea what they're going to do. I do keep seeing, at times where like Aiden's going to fall out of the number 1 pick. And I just personally think, homerism aside, like being a Michigan, that I think Aiden is like what is the epitome of a Dan Campbell type player. So I think that if he's on the board, I can't see Dan Campbell passing on him. I can't see them passing on him at all. So I think that if he's available, that's who they're going to probably end up taking. A lot of people are on Malik Willis. I just don't see how, still having, not being an immediate impact player at the number 2 pick. Like, I just have a hard time, saying that that's what I want and want to see happen. But that being said, I trust Brad Holmes. I trust Dan Campbell. They have me bought in. So until they show me otherwise, I'll trust like whatever they end up doing. But I don't want to QB it too. I really don't.
I'm 100% with you. Like in my theory, I'm starting to really assess this draft closer to what the 2013 quarterback class was. That was the worst in my memory. That's when they went EJ Manuel 16, Geno Smith goes 39, and then I think Mike Glennon might have been the next off the board somewhere in the I think 3rd round. So I mean, you're talking names right there. Maybe 2 of them are still in the NFL, but they're not really doing anything, right? This draft scares me, Drums. And from last year, if you remember, we weren't super high on that quarterback class. We knew it was decent, but by this time last year, you heard the rumblings of Trey Lance moving up. You heard the rumblings of potentially Mac Jones moving up. You kind of knew where some of the other ones, Lawrence was going, but I'm just very surprised. We've heard not much. I mean, a little bit of talking Malik Willis, not much outside of him, right? I think this is a tough QB class. I'd stay away.
The difference is, and I agree with you, and this is where I do agree in the sense that, this very well could be a poor quarterback class. 100%. Very well could be, but I feel like every year we kind of like overvalue the chances that these quarterbacks pan out, right? So like we look at it like there is risk every single year with every single quarterback. So by waiting into the future, it does not guarantee you that you're going to get a quarterback that has a better chance to succeed in the NFL because they're all risks. Like we can go down the list, like Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, like they're all, they were all solid on draft day, but none of them worked out, right? So it's hard to pick a quarterback and develop him to succeed in this league. Not easy. You got to get the right guy. And a lot of times that right guy has like incredible athleticism and physical attributes. You look at Josh Allen, you look at, Deshaun Watson, you look at, Patrick Mahomes. Those teams were able to get those guys for the same reasons that we're hearing about this draft class because like, oh, it was Deshaun Watson. Well, he's too small and he's, all this stuff. Patrick Mahomes, not pro style, doesn't look like a franchise quarterback, right? Texas Tech, all that stuff. That's how those players got those players. Now, what I think is interesting about this draft and the quarterbacks is that we're not hearing the rumblings, and you're 100% right. But how much of that has to do with the fact that so many teams, because of last year's draft, are set at the quarterback position? Like, there are not a lot of holes. Like, we even seen, like, the Washington football team go pay a ton of money to Carson Wentz, of all people, right? Like, so there's not a lot of need where last year all these teams needed quarterbacks, right? Like, they all needed them, and the quarterbacks were there. So that was kind of the talk of the conversation. But there's just not a lot of teams that I feel like need quarterbacks. Like you have Carolina, obviously has to do something. They can still fall back on Baker Mayfield if they want. But that's the thing. But the question I want to ask is kind of how much do you think, now, not whether it's right or not, but how much do you think goes into Detroit's decision-making when you look at it from the perspective of we have a fan base that is just dying to win games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have, we know what Detroit's history is. They're dying to win games. There's pressure for Campbell to turn this thing around. The quickest way of turning it around is getting an defensive, impact player, right? That's going to help you get the 6-7 wins a lot quicker than drafting a quarterback and having them sit. But do you guys think that that's necessary? Like, how much of that influence do you think goes into their decision-making and the fact that they feel like they have to deliver because of the history of the fan base, where if this was like a Rams team or, a team that won the Super Bowl, Baltimore, a team that won a Super Bowl recently, where they would have a little more leeway?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of fans say, okay, the fans that are saying they want the quarterback and they want that and stuff too, forgot, like, when you get a quarterback, we still have so many other holes. Like we have, we need more offensive weapons. You get a kid out there, aka Stafford, and you don't give him anything and you don't build outside of that for anything. What good is it going to be until you put him somewhere where he does have talent and outward build? So it's like the defense, wide receivers, there's so many things that we need to fill and we need to build on before that. So I think that, and I'm hoping that that's what Holmes and Campbell are trying to do, is just to build from the trenches out. When you get those offensive weapons, then get a quarterback that you want to bring in and have up when you have those, opportunities for him to succeed. Because if you don't, it's going to be Stafford all over again. And then we're going to be through the whole pain and heartbreak of that and watching it. And I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, and I don't sit there in Detroit like, in Michigan like you, Lexi. But my opinion is I think they are in for the slow approach. I think they are investing in the future and trying to build this team. So, Drums, I think you have a point. But I think this Detroit team has actually bought in and said, hey, we're going to take our time and build this the right way, which is not a lot. NFL doesn't happen. Everybody wants to win, and you do see you can flip it quick. But, the decision to draft the tackle last year, they got Sewell last year, right? When you had all these quarterbacks laying around, the decision to get rid of Stafford, there's a lot of decisions that they've made and said, I'm going to build this up front long-term. So I still think they go that way. And then your point about, a lot of teams might not need a quarterback. I think a lot of teams need to look at themselves in the mirror, and I'll start with the Giants. I mean,
I agree, 100%.
If you think that those dudes are still your guys, and Wentz is on a 1-year deal, Saints, that's why I still believe this class is pretty bad. Now, would I take my chance on Willis? Yeah, not top 10 though. I try and find, if I'm the Lions and I love them, I got enough assets backed up in the second round and such that I think I could probably move back up.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you somehow got him with a second pick or something, I'm not going to be as adamant against it, because then I'm like, okay, well, at least we got that defensive piece, or at least we got whatever they choose to do and trade back, whatever, But I'm excited though. It's going to be interesting. I just feel like I'm in the dark.
It's always fun
no
being
idea.
at the top of the draft. Yeah, and listen, I'm not caping.
I've been there so much. I know.
Yeah. I'm not saying that Malik Willis is the second coming. That's
right.
not
I know.
But I think he has the tools he has the upside to where he could be the type of quarterback that I feel like you really need to compete in today's NFL. When we look at, the AFC, for instance, we talk about, and I know I always beat up the Colts, right? But, we harp about we have to build, one of the two philosophies is, you build the team, you go get the quarterback, or you go get the quarterback and build the team, right? And, you look at the Colts and you look at the Panthers, and I mean, the Panthers got a way out because they ended up losing every game last year. But, they built the team, and now they can't go get the quarterback. They have to go out and get Carson Wentz. The Colts had to go out and get Matt Ryan. And now they have, in Matt Ryan, they have the 12th best quarterback in their conference. In their conference alone. Yeah. So, you have you have all these elite quarterbacks. You have Burrow, you have Herbert, you have Mahomes, you have Allen, you have, Lamar Jackson, you have, all these elite quarterbacks in the league. In NFC, you have Rodgers, you have Russell Wilson, you have Matt Stafford, right? So you need to find a guy, drafting a guy, I think, in the second round, or finding a guy that falls there. I think there's a ton of risk with that. And I feel the same way about the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, that's why, like, I am not sold on Jalen Hurts. Like, maybe Jalen Hurts can prove me wrong, but I just feel like when you watch that Chiefs-Bills game, like you need an elite quarterback or you're not going to win. You're not going to win Super Bowls.
Yeah. No, I agree. And as far as the Eagles take, just real quick, with their trade to have 15 and 18, I mean, I'm all in on linebacker receiver. That's the kind of the combo I want. But Drums, if Willis is there, oh God, I'm tempted.
It makes it tough. Yeah, it makes it tough. Like, I think it's, and the whole thing with Willis is they're red flags, right? Like, he has some horrible games at Liberty. And listen, I bet on him. So, like, I know. I remember these games, right? So, like, he doesn't feel pressure well, takes a lot of sacks, but it's really hard to evaluate somebody that is so much better than the surrounding players on the field. You know what I mean? Because you develop bad habits, you try and do too much. Like, all that stuff kind of plays into the sense. I think Willis has the physical athleticism, the raw ability to where if you can develop it, and you're probably going to have to sit, right? Patrick Mahomes sat, Aaron Rodgers sat, plenty of good quarterbacks sat, in order to make that work. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to work, just like it doesn't mean that Trevor Lawrence is going to work either. Like, Trevor Lawrence was the surefire pick, and now after 1 year, everybody's like, ooh, like, let's hope Doug Peterson can, can bring the best out of him. But again, he's in the AFC. He's not in the top 12 of that conference and probably not going to be for a couple years at least. So it's not easy, like, developing these quarterbacks, and there's a lot of risk with whoever they are. So, like, that's kind of like my point is like, people say, like, oh, we'll just get a quarterback later, like it's going to be less risky. I'm not sure it is.
Well, later means 2023, but Lexi, that's how I look anymore. But Lexi, let me ask you this. If you sit tight in the second round and Willis is off the board, are there any quarterbacks you would consider?
Well, that's a good question.
No, to be honest, no.
I don't think there is.
I mean, it's like if it's going to be a QB, let it be Malik. But, like, other than that, no. I can't justify it because I just know what's coming. And yes, it's going to be a risk and whatever. But, like, there's more options, so it's like the risk is like almost less for next year because there's like more talent and more, quarterbacks that are coming in next year that I'd take the risk on.
As Drums keeps talking about athleticism, what you need in that position, I'm starting to think Corral might be worth a second-round risk for somebody. The injuries are the biggest thing with him, but he's uber athletic.
Yeah,
he is. But I don't know, how much of it do you think is Lane Kiffin?
60%. So
a lot, right? I think like that system was a lot.
But second or third round.
Yeah, and we love Matt Corral. And, like, listen, I love Lane Kiffin. I love Ole Miss. Love Matt Corral. They've won me a lot of money over the years as well. But I just feel like sometimes he doesn't see the field, man. And, like, he's kind of, like, locked in. Like, the play is like, hey, like, safety's on this side of the field. I'm throwing to this guy. That's Matt Corral. You know what I mean?
He's not open. I'm running.
Yeah, I'm running. Right. And it's, I'm not sure if he translates to the NFL level. And I love the guy. Like, I would love to see him. Like, I thought he was going to win the Heisman. Like, me and Matt Corral tight, right? But not on my team. Not in the NFL. No way, man. Good luck.
For the record, I'm with Lexi. I wouldn't take one in the second round either. At that first couple of selections, no.
Yeah, I think. I mean, ultimately for the Lions, I think it's if you take somebody else at number 2, whether it's Walker. I mean, I don't think Hutchinson is going to fall. Obviously, if he does, you take him. It's a no-brainer. But whether you take Walker or I don't know, Sauce Gardner, whoever ends up whatever they end up doing there. I mean, we'll see, but I think that's it. Like, if it's not that, then I don't think you're going to get Willis at 32. I think somebody's going to snatch him up before then. Obviously, if he's there, it's a decision to make, right? But I think it's just you pack it up and you move on to next year and you just roll with Jared Goff, which is I think could be tough.
And then you go sign Baker too.
No, keep that out of here. I'll forever like adore him for like sticking that flag in the toilet bowl stadium, but like
Baker.
That's about all it cuts off to right there.
Baker keeps it up, man. He's gonna be with the Panthers.
Did you see that statue reveal?
Yeah, he's gonna be in the USFL.
I did see the statue, man. It does not
look like him. It was that's more disrespectful to even reveal it.
I would be like, do it again.
No, he's going to be a Steeler. I'm telling you. He's going to be
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Well, it would just be like.
Well, you know what? He's going to be a Steeler if Willis is not a Steeler.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's why they're waiting.
Willis, I can see. Oh,
That's
yeah.
why they're waiting.
Yo,
Yeah.
it ain't Mitch. I don't care what anybody wants to say. It is not
Yeah,
Mitch.
it ain't Mitch, dude. No.
Get
It
out of
ain't Mitch.
here. I hate that my team made him look so good all those years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's brutal. All right, well, awesome talk. Listen, I have a couple draft plays, but to be honest, they get steamed so much it's not even really worth it. Like Sauce Gardner under 7.5. I did punch in Kyle Hamilton over 10.5. I do have that play in there, but I'm not going too heavy on the draft. I might punch them in draft day to kind of spice it up a little bit, but it really didn't go crazy. Just the market's so volatile. It's like if you don't get in early, you're betting into like minus 200. So it's kind of it's kind of nuts.
Yeah,
but going to be fun Thursday night. Listen, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We're up against 50 minutes, so we got to get out of here. We got work to do today, but we will be back next Saturday. And listen, we'll get Lexi's take on what happened in the draft and what the Detroit Lions can look at going forward. So going to be some good stuff. I'm kind of hoping that the Lions trade out.
I know. I want some drama. Give me some drama.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of drama on draft day. I
know. I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be back next Saturday to talk about it. We'll be hitting everything as always: NBA playoffs, MLB, NFL, USFL, UFC, golf, you name it. We're going to talk about it right here, try and win some money. So everybody have a good weekend.
Sixers.
Go Sixers, and we'll see you guys next week.